word of the day is ruína, and Casa is a ruin. And I went to see this place probably 18 months ago, and it has been posted, and it comes through a wonderful man by the name of Glenn Catling. I'm confused about his name because I was listening to the recording, which I'll play for you in just a moment. It'll be weird because it is my interview with him, and I'll have to sit here on Facebook Live while you listen to it. So it'll be looking like a sort of ventriloquism act. But let me just find this in my saved. Oh, here we go. Excellent. In my saved items on Facebook. This is the ruin that's gone from 7,000 originally, 7,000 euros, that is, to 5,500 euros. Now, this probably is for somebody who's thinking, yes, another new year is coming and I want to change my life. I know, I'll go and live on the land. Portugal looks like a great place to do that. And if you're of that sort of mindset, if that's what you're thinking, which I have been, I'm not so sure I am anymore, this is an amazing property or an amazing site and an absolutely beautiful location by a river beach. In the town and village of Gois. Gois is fabulous in central Portugal, near Arganil as well. And this is up in altitude a little way up the hill, and a village called Portela. You'll find out more about this when I play the interview I did with Glenn from a few months ago, over a year ago now, I think. And in this description, he describes it as it would suit removing excuse me, let me just cough again. I'm so sorry. It's the residue of living through a damp Portuguese autumn and winter in a particularly humid and damp town. But don't let that put you off. It would suit removing halfway down, not me, that's the ruin that we're talking about, and building a cabin on top or glamping tent. See more info and drawings and tent example in this listing on Facebook. And you can find out more about this. Glenn Catling is the man. Glenn with two N's, Catling. It is Glenn Catling. I thought it was Gatling, as in the machine gun of the same name. Glenn Catling. And you can find out more in the Central Portugal Building Cabins, Ruins and Community Living public group on Facebook. But don't worry, if you go to goodmorningportugal.com, there will be links to this, and I will break this up as my Casa do Dia mini podcast anyway, to give you more information, and links to it will be there. So also what he said was, which I don't think I can find at the moment, but don't let that bother you, don't let that worry you. You take €1,000 deposit and then installments on the rest. And I've been exactly that person who I think Glenn is aiming this at, like in England, thinking, how on earth am I going to afford to move to Portugal? It's where I want to go. I don't think you could get a better offer than that from what Glenn's offering here. €1,000 deposit on this amazing place. If I could screen share it with you, I would. And one day, I hope to do that. I hope to be able to vision mix this show to make it a little bit of not only a radio show and podcast, but a little TV show in the morning, bringing you all the news for Portuguese, or for people coming to Portugal who are expats, explorers and dreamers. Could you please cover the weather in central Portugal? Smriti Dugal, thank you for that inquiry question. Yes, of course. Which particular bit? I suppose the closest we got today, Smriti, was Coimbra, which is going to experience the highest temperature today of 18 degrees. But why don't you give me a particular location or town in central Portugal, because it would vary quite a lot, I think, the closer you are to the Estrela mountain range. So yeah, give us a bit more of a clue, Smriti, if you will, on which bit of central Portugal weather you would like to cover. And I'll gladly do that. I think it's a great idea. Maybe it's Oliveira do Hospital, Tábua, somewhere like that. But do tell me, or even Viseu. Viseu might be a good place to include as far as the weather goes. Okay, so back to the cabin, the ruin today, cabin fever, the Casa do Dia today, which is this €5,500. It is a ruin. It looks very beautiful and idyllic for those people with vision. It's got a little set of steps going up to what's like the first floor or mezzanine almost, and then a ground level floor, which, you know, it could be for where the animals used to be kept. and it is well covered in foliage. So there's a lot of work. I mean, you need to be under no illusion here that you could just move straight into it, unless you're an extremely hardy Ray Mears type of person. But it's a beautiful village, and you'll hear more about that now as I play the interview that I did with Glenn. And I'd be grateful if someone is listening to see if they can still hear this when I push this button now, which is my interview with Glenn from about 18 months ago. Okay, Carl Munson for the Good Morning Portugal radio show. I'm with Glenn Catling, who describes himself as a retired person, but he's hardly retired. He's a visionary, and we're sat in the beautiful village of Portela, which is 5 kilometres from a lovely town called Gois that's famous for its river beach. It's a lovely tourist spot, and we're 5 kilometres away from there. Feels like in the middle of nowhere in this beautiful valley. Glenn, it's lovely to meet you. This is a spiritual home for you, right, Portela?
Yes, Carl. I lived here 20 years ago. I moved here 20 years ago from England. And at that point, there was about 14 different families living in the village. Now there's one family left. The village is falling down. It's not on its own. There's hundreds of villages like this in Portugal. This one actually is on the N2, which is the main route through Portugal, which is now going to be named the Route 66, which is going to enhance tourism. It's a huge potential for revitalising a village. Right behind us is a house that fell down about 5 years ago. You can't even see the house anymore. It's just covered in brambles, etc., etc.
Well, nature's definitely taken it back, isn't it?
It definitely has.
So in your 20 years here then, I mean, you've seen a lot of things come and go, right? There is a vogue, if you like, for off-gridding now. Is everything coming together in a like a sort of perfect storm for this regeneration to take place, or have you still got your reservations and doubts about that?
The problem I had at the time, I first tried this rejuvenation program 20 years ago. I survived for 5 years, but the problem was there was no Facebook, no internet. Pure Portugal was the first to have a website going, and we all shared it, and it's gone on from there, and word of mouth gets around. And the complication can be that as soon as people start buying in a village, the price goes up. I'm doing this completely free of charge. I'm only charging people that want to buy here expenses. The land in front of us is under offer. Somebody wants to build a cabin and 3 glamping pods on it. That would be the basis of a start of a rural tourism project. This whole area is covered by an association with 4 villages, and they've agreed that it needs attention, it needs revitalising, it needs new blood, it needs new people. I've even heard one of the last messages I got yesterday evening was that there's some Portuguese youngsters looking for an alternative life, and the potential is here.
Well, that's right, because what you're talking about is really a model for regeneration throughout the whole country and other parts of Europe, right?
Absolutely. And as far as I can see, the national government are all for allowing local cameras, local municipalities to make their own mind up how they approach these things. And there are laws that allow people to build in rural areas. It just down to the cameras, how they adapt, and the engineers and the planning people, how they adapt these rules.
And is that what you think is the principal blockage? Because there's a gathering momentum in people's consciousness, isn't it, that we need to live differently.
Absolutely.
The Western economy is only rewarding, the 1%. And where everyone's drifted away from these beautiful rural places, following the dream of capitalism, it's like people are starting to come back now, aren't they, to the country? It. But what's the principal blockage then? Is it a vision or lack of vision within the authorities that can make it happen?
Well, I can only speak for here. I mean, we've just been to Gois. Gois is the capital of the Sierra Valley. The Sierra Valley is a trading route that reaches down to Gois and the N2. And it used to provide transport, a road, a trading route, shall we say, for olives and maize. And in 1950, the population of Gois Camera was 15,000, I believe. It's now 3,000. So the population decline is drastic. Even with lots of Estrangeiros and lots of Portuguese coming back here, it's still not enough to keep these places going. There's some of them, immense architectural value, are just falling down, and it's a real shame.
It is a shame, isn't it, that it has to go to ruin for that to be the jumping up point, or the rock bottom, if you like. It's literally rock bottom, isn't it? These are turning into sort of rocky ruins, and that becomes the rock bottom where something is eventually done, if anything is done at all. But you obviously, I mean, what you were saying to me before is that it's going to be better, isn't it, to get in at a much earlier stage and not let. Why? And people ask this question, don't they, in Portugal? Why do things go to ruin? Why isn't that process? Or why aren't people getting involved earlier in the process? Why does it have to go all the way into that decline and into ruins?
Well, fortunately, in this village, I renovated 4 houses in this village, not totally traditionally, but with stone and to blend in with the nature as much as I possibly could. They're now sold to people that are using them. But that's the only thing that's gone on in this village for 20 years, and they're only really holiday homes now. I think there needs to be more understanding of what the Estrangeiros want to do, and not only Estrangeiros, but young Portuguese are keen to re-establish some kind of agricultural growth in this area. And the history is here, the old infrastructure is here.
It's all possible, isn't it?
It's all possible. Just 100 metres from where we're sitting, there's an old irrigation system that used to be powered by donkeys. It's still there. I doubt if we'd be able to find it. It's probably so overgrown. But the local association have agreed to renovate it. And not far from that, there's a river swimming area that if it was attended to a bit, would be a fantastic asset for this whole area.
And there's right next to us, to our right, is the communal font. It's a beautiful. I'll take a photo of it and post it with the interview. And then just up the track a little bit is a communal washing area. The facilities are still hanging on in here, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's still got a heart. That Manel, unfortunately, the guy we've just spoken to, fell over and broke his shoulder not so long ago. But he's still happy here, but he desperately wants some people to come and live next to him in the village. And when I first came here, they admitted they would rather have Portuguese, but they said, if it's not Portuguese, you're welcome. You don't steal from us. You seem to work hard, so you're welcome to stay here. And that welcome has been given to me ever since I've been here, and is today.
Well, yeah, I saw the reception you got. You're obviously well loved in this area. Now, you were talking about how you help people come into this place and pick up with the vision that you're talking about. How do people get in touch? What's the best way to get in touch with you, Glenn, and find out more about this?
Well, through my Facebook group, I suppose. Central Portugal Cabins and Ruins and Community Living. But I must stress that there's so many bad reports and so many misleading reports about building in rural areas, rebuilding ruins. A lot of it is hearsay, and the best way to go forward is if everyone goes to see the council when they want to do something, because they are quite amiable. There is a lot you can do, but don't take the pee out of them.
Yeah.
If they say you can build something 40 square metres, build it 40 square metres. Don't build it 45 square metres, or build bigger than you should do. I'd like to clarify, it seems to me, I've spoken to lawyers about this, it seems to me a rundown cabin, a rundown building up to 40 square metres you can pull down and rebuild without even notifying the camera. You're better off to do so, but legally you can. But a building under 40 square metres you won't get a habitation licence for, so you can't get fined for not having a habitation licence. There's hundreds of people living in barns. I'm not suggesting everyone should do it, but there is the potential to go and see the camera. If you're taking up one of these bits of redundant land, that there's hundreds available, you should be able to survive by living on it, because the village we're sitting in is built on the top of a hill, as it were, and they wouldn't obviously build houses on land that they could grow potatoes on.
Yeah.
So you've reached a situation where people don't want to spend 50,000 on repairing an old ruin. They want to buy a bit of land and live on the land in a tiny house or a cabin. And as far as I can see, the cameras are leaning towards allowing this. But people must approach the camera, must approach the councils and tell them what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, the council don't know. They don't know what you want to do.
Yeah, and it's like there's a groundswell of understanding as well, isn't there? Is that, I suppose from the camera's point of view, it represents regeneration, isn't it? People moving in. And it's probably best with some of the more visionary cameras that they have people coming in and they make some sort of compromise rather than just rule everything out. And that's what people fear, I suppose, isn't it? That it's going to just get ruled out. But you're saying go speak to them because most people are sort of changing their view.
Absolutely. Once a village cafe is closed down, the village starts to die even more. The village I live in had 3 cafes. It's now got 1, which is very successful and it's carrying on. But a lot of villages are losing their cafes, losing contact with the outside world almost. I mean, where we're sitting now, you could be in the middle of Canada, you could be anywhere, but it's 5 kilometres from Gois.
Yeah, which is beautiful as well. Glenn, thank you so much. So just give us the name of the groups again where people can find you on Facebook.
Central Portugal, building cabins, ruins and community living.
Awesome, thanks Glenn. Glenn Catling, that is who you're looking for. GLENNCATLING. Cheers, Glenn. How lovely to hear that again, talking to Glenn there. Big-hearted Glenn. Such a visionary as well. And well, you can hear in the background there, it's such a lovely part of the world, the village of Portela. There's a few of Portelas around Portugal because it means gateway, I believe, or portal almost. And you can hear the bees buzzing around the microphone, the birds and the buzzsaws in the background, the real sound of central Portugal, near the village town of Gois with its fabulous river beach. We had such a lovely day there at Gois, and Arganil is a lovely little town as well. Glenn also mentioned, I want to just squeeze this into the show today as well. Before we go, we're going to look at celebrating New Year's Eve like a Portuguese in just a minute, but Glenn mentioned the Route 66, which strikes me as an amazing tourist opportunity for Portugal to re-establish the National Route 2, the EN2, it runs from the north to the south. It's an old supply route, and it goes up and down the mountains. It's the backbone, the spine, the transport spine of Portugal, and it starts in Chaves, up in the north. You'll come through Villarreal, you'll end up in Viseu, which is pretty much my latitude here in Portugal, on then to near to Coimbra. It doesn't go through Coimbra, but it goes near to Coimbra, down towards Castelo Branco to the east, Tomar to the west, then past Almorol. Interestingly, it doesn't go through Lisbon. It's I don't know, probably 100 or so kilometers, more even, to the east of Lisbon, and you go level with Évora, but you don't go through it, and then you head down through Alentejo to Aljustrel, Almodóvar, and into the Algarve, ending up in Faro. And that is, I mean, most people I hear come to Portugal for traditionally a 3-day visit. That's how it seems to work. And they might go to Lisbon, and they might go to Porto, and they might go to Aveiro in between. But that as a week-long or 2-week-long trip from the north to the south would be wonderful. And I hope that the people in Portuguese tourism make something of that, because you get to see so much of the traditional, real, gritty and pretty Portugal traveling that route. I want to do it myself. It's amazing. So that's Portugal's Route 66, the traditional transport route, the EN2, the National Route 2. Don't know what National Route 1 would have been. Probably been maybe from Lisbon to Porto. But that is for another... Yes, of course, that's the N1, isn't it? Which is, yes, the not coastal road, but more to the west anyway. And we'll look at that another time, I suspect. But it's not as glamorous and interesting, I'm sure, as the EN2 Route 66.